New Lifers. So let's talk about the life group discussion questions. I want to say three things about this new 5-question format. First, if the discussions are going to be productive, you're going to have to read the chapters that we're discussing before your discussion. It's not like a requirement. You can come even if you don't do it. But we changed to this format because we think it will help us learn more in our discussions. So come with some questions from the readings. Second, the 5 questions have specific goals, each one of them. The first question is almost like an icebreaker. It's meant to get you to reflect on your week. The second question is the head question. What did you learn from the readings? The third question is the heart question. What is the Holy Spirit speaking to you personally? It can be about the reading specifically or just something that the Holy Spirit is teaching you personally. The fourth question is the hands question. So head, heart, hands. The fourth question is about how we are meant to put these things that we're learning into practice. And then the last question is not necessarily about the reading at all. It's the community question. So we share prayer requests with our life groups, and then we can follow up with each other and reach out to each other and find out how everybody's doing after they've shared their requests with you. And the third thing that I want to say is that the 5 questions are there to get the discussion going, but please don't think that you have to stick to the questions. If you want to spend the whole time on one question because it really stuck out to you, that's fine. It's fine to get completely off topic and just go with your discussion that way. Okay, let's dive into this week's passage. Today we're going to tackle Matthew 17 through Matthew 20. A lot of things happen in these chapters, so I'm going to have to go through this quickly. Chapter 17 opens with this strange story about a time that Jesus went up onto a mountain and he met 2 dead prophets, Moses and Elijah, and Jesus goes down the mountain, heals a demon-possessed boy, predicts his death again, and then tells people that they should pay their taxes. It's just kind of an eclectic chapter. Then in chapter 18, the people are still thinking Jesus came to establish some kind of political kingdom. So they're arguing about who is going to get to be in the highest position in Jesus' new political kingdom. And Jesus says, if you want to be great in my kingdom, then you've got to humble yourself like a child. Then Jesus tells an awesome parable about a shepherd who will leave 99 sheep to go find one sheep who has wandered away. He's still talking about children here, and he's saying that it is good when your kids stay faithful to me, but if even one of those kids wander away or rebels, then we should do everything we can to bring them back to faith. Then Jesus tells us how to hold other Christians accountable for their actions. He said, first go to the person who did something wrong. If they don't apologize, get 2 or 3 people together and talk to them again. If that doesn't work, then go to the authorities. In this case, he refers to the authorities of the church. Then Jesus told a parable about a king who forgave some debts, and Jesus explained that if we want to be forgiven by God, then we should be forgivers. We should forgive others. And then in chapter 19, Jesus tells his followers not to get divorced unless their spouse cheats on them. Then again, Jesus tells everyone how much he loves kids. It's just kind of a theme of this area. And that is the reason that we're doing all of what we're doing to bring heaven to earth for our kids, to pass our faith on to them. Then a rich man comes to Jesus, and he pretty much asks how he can buy salvation. He wants to know, how can I use my leverage my wealth to buy salvation? And Jesus told him that he should sell everything that he owned because he knew that this rich guy was a slave to his money. He taught them that salvation isn't about getting something. Salvation is about giving something. It's about giving yourself to something. Back in week 3 of the semester, I mentioned that there were 2 books that made it into the Bible originally, but then later they were removed. One of those books was called The Shepherd of Hermas, or Shepherd of Hermes. The book is about a shepherd from heaven, probably an angel, who gave spiritual advice to a former slave named Hermas. And the book is mostly a bunch of moral teaching. It talks about sex and anger and how to do good deeds. And the reason it didn't make it into the final copy of the Bible is that it seemed to disagree with the other books in the Bible about what happens after a person is saved. In this book, the shepherd from heaven says, or the angel says, that people shouldn't sin after they're baptized. If they do sin after they're baptized, the book says God will forgive them one time, and after that, they will lose their salvation. And that obviously contradicts what some of the rest of the New Testament books say. The book of Matthew doesn't say much about salvation at all, but this story of the rich man is the deepest dive into salvation that Matthew really takes into this topic of what it looks like to be saved. So after talking to the rich man, Jesus said to his disciples, "I tell you the truth, it is very hard for a rich person to enter the kingdom of heaven." I'll say it again. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of heaven. The disciples were astounded. "Then who in the world can be saved?" they asked. Jesus looked at them intently and said, "Humanly speaking, it is impossible, but with God, everything is possible." In other words, Jesus was teaching them that they can't do anything to earn their salvation, and they can't do anything to keep their salvation after they have it. Salvation isn't about our good works. It's about His good works. Then he tells the disciples that their reward is heaven. He says, in this world, you're not going to get everything you want. You're going to live hard lives, but it will be worth it because heaven will be that great. Then chapter 20, Jesus opens with a parable of some vineyard workers. Some workers worked a full day. And then other workers only worked part of the day. But then they were all paid the same amount. The workers who worked a full day then got upset. This is that thief on the cross message about how some people will get in at the end and some people have worked their whole lives for it. And this is frustrating to us. But if you get saved as a child, you get to live your entire life with Jesus. Then Jesus predicts his death again and talked about serving others. Here's how we live like Christ, we serve others. He said that if you want to receive a great reward in the future life, then serve people in this life. And the chapter concludes with Jesus surrounded by a big crowd of people, as he usually was, and he's healing two blind men who call him the Son of David. They recognized who he was. So when I look back over these 4 chapters, I see an obvious theme: service and humility. Jesus just keeps telling us, if you want to become who you were created to be, then serve people. If you want a great reward in heaven, humble yourself and serve people. Don't try to have the authority of kings. Live with the humility of children. We spend so much of our lives trying to advance, to make more money, to get more power. And those things aren't bad, but that shouldn't become who we are. The authority that we have shouldn't define us. So, in your discussion, include an answer to this question. How are you serving people? What are you volunteering for? Is there a way that you could volunteer more often or give more time to more people? To humble yourself and to serve like Jesus served.